experimental psychology and psychological research play a crucial role in uncovering what drives human behavior. Concepts like cognitive dissonance, the false consensus effect, and classical conditioning have shaped our understanding of the mind. However, some psychologists have taken rather unconventional and sometimes ethically questionable approaches to their experiments. While their findings have contributed to psychological knowledge, the methods used to test certain theories have occasionally pushed ethical boundaries, with some even seeming disturbingly cruel. Unfortunately, participants in these studies have not always emerged unscathed. Some have experienced lasting psychological harm, or worse. Here are 7 shocking psychology experiments that went far beyond acceptable ethical limits. 1. The Monster Study, 1939. Dubbed the Monster Study by its contemporaries, psychologist Dr. Wendell Johnson's speech therapy experiment was initially kept under wraps to protect his professional reputation. Now regarded as one of the most infamous psychological experiments, the study was conducted in 1939 at the University of Iowa. Johnson enlisted graduate student Mary Tudor to carry out the research for her master's thesis while he oversaw the process. The experiment involved 22 orphan children, 10 of whom had existing issues with stuttering. They were divided into 2 groups, each containing a mix of children with and without speech disorders. One group received positive reinforcement and encouragement about their speech, while the other was subjected to harsh criticism, even when no speech issues were present. The results were meticulously documented, but the consequences were severe. Over the course of 6 months, many of the children experienced lasting emotional distress, with some becoming insecure and withdrawn, even those who had no prior speech difficulties. In 2007, the state of Iowa awarded financial compensation to 6 of the former participants who reported suffering lifelong psychological and emotional scars due to the experiment. 2. David Reimer, 1967 to 1977, Canadian. David Reimer's life took a devastating turn due to the actions of a Johns Hopkins University professor in one of psychology's most infamous studies. After a failed circumcision at just 6 months old left him with severe genital damage, his parents sought the advice of John Money, a professor of medical psychology and pediatrics. Money was a strong proponent of the gender neutrality theory, which argued that gender identity is primarily shaped by social upbringing. He advised that since Reimer's penis could not be reconstructed, he should undergo sex reassignment surgery and be raised as a girl. In 1967, Reimer began the treatment that transformed him into Brenda. Despite regular follow-up visits with Money over the next decade, he never truly identified as female. By the age of 14, he made the decision to live as a male again, and later underwent treatment to reverse the reassignment. However, the psychological toll of the experiment was profound, contributing to his lifelong struggle with depression, one of the key factors in his tragic suicide in 2004. Meanwhile, John Money remained a deeply controversial figure in the field. 3. The UCLA Schizophrenia Medication Experiment is one of the most controversial psychological studies in history. Beginning in 1983, psychologist Keith H. Nuechterlein and psychiatrist Michael Gitlin of the UCLA Medical Center launched a study examining the cognitive processes of schizophrenia, with a particular focus on relapse patterns. Their goal was to identify potential predictors of psychosis. To investigate this, participants, drawn from a pool of hundreds, were taken off their medication, despite the known risks and severe side effects associated with antipsychotic drugs. While the research offered valuable insights into schizophrenia, it has faced strong criticism for failing to adequately safeguard participants when their symptoms resurfaced. Critics argue that the study lacked clear guidelines on when patients should be reinstated on medication, leaving them vulnerable. Tragically, in 1991, former program participant Antonio Lamadrid, who had openly expressed suicidal thoughts, died by suicide after jumping from a 9-story building, despite supposedly being under the study's supervision. 4. The Bobo Doll Experiment, 1961-1963. In the early 1960s, Stanford University psychologist Albert Bandura set out to demonstrate that human behavior can be learned through observing rewards and punishments. To test this, he gathered 72 nursery-age children and introduced them to a large, inflatable toy known as a Bobo doll. A portion of the children were shown an adult model engaging in aggressive behavior, punching, hitting, and verbally abusing the doll for about 10 minutes. Disturbingly, Bandura observed that many of the 24 children who witnessed this aggression went on to imitate it. When left alone with the Bobo doll after the adult had left, these children displayed heightened aggression, both physically and verbally, attacking the toy with alarming intensity for their age. In 1963, Bandura repeated the experiment and obtained similar findings. While his research provided significant insight into observational learning and social behavior, it has since faced ethical criticism. Critics argue that the study essentially encouraged aggressive tendencies in young children, raising concerns about potential long-term consequences for their psychological development. 5. The Homosexual Aversion Therapy, 1967. Aversion therapy aimed at curing homosexuality was once a widely researched practice in various academic institutions. One such study, published in the British Medical Journal in 1967, detailed efforts to treat a group of 43 homosexual men. The research, conducted by M.J. McCulloch and M.P. Feldman at Crumpsall Hospital in Manchester, UK, involved exposing participants to aversion-based conditioning. During the experiment, participants were shown slides of men and instructed to look at them for as long as they found them appealing. However, after 8 seconds, they were subjected to an electric shock. In contrast, slides of women were also displayed, but without any negative reinforcement. Although the researchers claimed some degree of success in altering participants' responses, the study has since been condemned. In 1994, the American Psychological Association officially declared homosexual aversion therapy both dangerous and ineffective, recognizing the significant harm such practices inflicted on individuals. 6. The Little Albert experiment is a notorious example of psychological research gone wrong. In 1920, ethical standards were vastly different, allowing experiments that would be unthinkable today. At Johns Hopkins University, American psychologist John B. Watson set out to determine whether fear could be conditioned in a child. For his experiment, Watson selected an 8-month-old baby, Albert, and exposed him to a white rat. At first, Albert showed no fear. However, Watson then paired the rat's presence with a sudden, loud noise, an instinctively frightening stimulus. Over time, Albert began to associate the rat with the noise, eventually reacting with fear whenever he saw the animal. Watson didn't stop there. He extended the conditioning to other stimuli, including a rabbit, a dog, and even a man with a white Santa Claus beard, all of which caused Albert distress. By the end of the experiment, the infant had developed multiple phobias, potentially leaving him with lasting psychological trauma. 7. The monkey drug trials stand as a disturbing example of a psychology experiment that crossed ethical boundaries. While the study aimed to explore the psychological aspects of drug addiction, 3 researchers from the University of Michigan Medical School, G.A. Deneau, T. Yanagita, and M.H. Sievers, took highly controversial measures in 1969 by deliberately addicting macaque monkeys to illegal substances. The researchers injected the primates with a range of drugs, including cocaine, amphetamines, morphine, LSD, and alcohol, to observe whether the animals would begin self-administering the substances. Many did, leading the researchers to claim a connection between drug abuse and psychological dependence. However, the study's scientific value has been questioned, as its findings may not directly translate to human addiction. Furthermore, the experiment's methods were not only ethically dubious, but also undeniably cruel. Some monkeys became a danger to themselves, with tragic consequences. Several ultimately died as a result of the study. With the ethical boundaries in place today, how far should psychological research go in the pursuit of knowledge, and where should we draw the line to protect participants? Let me know what your thoughts in the comments, and as always, thanks for watching. Please support the channel and like and subscribe. Have a great day or night.